I would like to begin by acknowledging that our warehouse and the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Algonquin peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to be present in this territory today. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. Today, we are marking the 40th anniversary of the Ottawa Food Bank's first board meeting. The first meeting of Provisions Ottawa was held in March 1984 with 11 people in attendance. The minutes were handwritten and very brief, and thankfully by the next meeting they had found a typewriter, so they're much easier to follow after that. Around this time, the average income in Canada was $15,000 a year. Skimmed milk cost 98 cents, eggs were $1.37. The minivan was first introduced, Pierre Elliott Trudeau retired, and Band-Aid released Do They Know It's Christmas to raise money for the Ethiopian famine. 1984 was the first time that the news of the famine made its way to the Western world. Here in Canada, food banking was very new to the country. Edmonton Food Bank was the first to open in 1980 and provided much assistance to those in Ottawa who were looking to open a similar organization. What I noted about those early minutes of Provision Ottawa is that not much has changed. Discussions centered around finding enough funding, storage of food, staffing, and proper spaces to run food banks from. I did have a bit of a laugh and maybe a little bit of a cry when they questioned the necessity of such an organization. A funder suggested the agencies involved needed to convince them of a need for an organization like the Ottawa Food Bank. Would there really be a long-term need for a food bank? We won't be calling this anniversary a celebration. Nothing about a food bank being needed for 40 years is to be celebrated. Nous n'appellerons pas cet anniversaire une célébration. La fête d'un banque alimentaire soit nécessaire depuis 40 ans n'a rien de réjouissant. The Ottawa Food Bank provides food for more than 100 food programs across the city, ranging from the big downtown shelters and small community food banks to multi-service centers and snack programs. And those agencies in turn provide that food to your neighbors. We are only still here because the need continues to grow. The number of visits in Ottawa increased by 68% since March 2019. This is anything but a celebration. Our food budget went from $1.9 million in 2019 to over $9 million last year. This is in part because of the cost of food, but also because of the rising number of people who are needing to access a food bank in our community. It's getting harder and harder to keep up. At the Ottawa Food Bank, we don't talk about solving the issue of hunger. Hunger is solved by a meal. Our network of over 100 emergency food programs deal with the symptoms of poverty every single day. À la Banque d'alimentation d'Ottawa, nous ne parlerons pas de résoudre le problème de la faim. La faim est résoluée par un repas. Notre réseau de plus de 100 programmes d'aide alimentaire s'occupe des symptômes de la pauvreté tous les jours. There are food banks in every community and right across this country. Here in Ottawa, the nation's capital, we are the 5th largest food bank in Canada. Being the 5th largest is not something we want to celebrate. Today, we must declare enough is enough. Last year, 1 in 7 households in Ottawa reported experiencing food insecurity, a significant increase from 1 in 15 just 5 years ago. Last year alone, the network saw a 22% increase in the number of clients. These are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are families, these are individuals, seniors, these are our neighbors. 37% of clients who access a food bank are children. When will we say enough is enough? What number, 40%, 50%? Today, on our 40th anniversary of the Ottawa Food Bank's first meeting, we are affirming our goal, possibly the most important goal we have ever set. By 2050, no one in Ottawa is food insecure. The best thing that could happen to the food bank is to no longer be needed. Together, we have to reduce the chronic need for food banking. And when food insecurity does happen, we need to have community-based responses. We set this goal because we know it's possible and we know it must happen. We can no longer allow food insecurity to happen in our cities, and it's going to take real action. After 40 years of food banking, we know more food is not the solution. We must support income-based solutions to eliminate food insecurity in every community. And that's why the Ottawa Food Bank, in partnership with the City of Ottawa and the Maple Leaf Centre for Food Security, have joined together to fund wraparound supports in communities right across this city. These services help people address the underlying issues of food insecurity, such as employment, mental health supports, language classes, and other critical programs. But this is just the first step. We must do more, and we can't do it alone. We support comprehensive policies that address the underlying issues of poverty in this country. Let's together say enough is enough. We are grateful to the founding members of the Ottawa Food Bank. They recognized the need for a collaborative, efficient model to support our community. The earliest list of recognized organizations had 13 member agencies: St. Bridget's Soup Kitchen, Centre 454, The Well, West End Lunch Program, Salvation Army, Carlington Social Action Committee, Bell's Corners Family Service Centre, St. Luke's Lunch Club, Ottawa Native Friendship Centre, the Union Mission for Men, and one of the oldest programs, the Emergency Centre, was founded in 1978 to serve the Centretown community. Now known as the Centretown Community Food Centre, like many programs, they provide more than food. They have undertaken numerous initiatives on behalf of the people in our community who face the most barriers and have advocated for social justice. Diana Mahaffey is the Food Centre's manager, and she's here with us today. I invite her up to say a few words.
Good morning, and thank you, Rachel, for inviting me to come speak today. I'm the manager of the Centretown Community Food Centre, and I'm honored to be here today to celebrate the essential role the Ottawa Food Bank plays and has played in our citywide effort to reduce food insecurity in Ottawa for the past 40 years. To provide some background, in 1978, in response to the increasing number of people in need turning to the churches in Centretown for food and money, the Centretown Churches Social Action Committee established an emergency food and clothing centre. It was run by volunteers out of the McLeod Stewarton United Church, which is now Centretown United Church. From 1980 to 1983, our food centre experienced a 300% increase in clientele, with more and more families using the service, in addition to the single people we had been helping. As more agencies began providing similar services, it was evident that centralized coordination was needed for fundraising and collecting and distributing donated food supplies citywide. One of the founders of the Centretown Churches Social Action Committee and of our food centre, and its coordinator for the first 10 years, was Betty Nealon, a member of Knox Presbyterian Church. Betty was one of the visionaries who realized that the time had come to tie the networks together to avoid duplication in fundraising efforts and to ensure equitable distribution of food and supplies. I'm sure when Betty and the other community leaders met in March of 1978 to establish Provisions Ottawa, they could not have imagined what the Ottawa Food Bank looks like today. In their minds, and in the minds of all those who were establishing community food banks across the city, this was an emergency response to a temporary situation. Sadly, we all know that this temporary situation has not gone away. Food insecurity continues to affect too many people in our city. Last spring, after 45 years, my community food bank changed its name from Centretown Emergency Food Centre to Centretown Community Food Centre, acknowledging the fact that food insecurity is now a constant in too many of our neighbors' lives. It's not an emergency anymore. Another issue we all face is increased demand for food bank services. For example, the Centretown Community Food Centre is now providing food for over 1,500 people in our catchment area each month. This is a 50% increase since just last summer. We are seeing many newcomers to Canada, but we are also seeing longtime residents of our neighborhood who are using a food bank for the very first time. What we are very proud to honor today is the role that the Ottawa Food Bank plays today and has played over the past 40 years to meet these needs. As a community food bank, we rely on the Ottawa Food Bank for a large proportion of the food we distribute. Over the years, the support we receive from this amazing agency has increased year by year. We have seen the quality and quantity of the Ottawa Food Bank's contributions increase. In particular, the proportion of dairy, meat, and fresh produce, and the quality and responses of the services, especially the weekly delivery service, have been enhanced. As well, our food center benefits from training and extensive networking opportunities, regular updates, and the consolidated purchasing power of the Ottawa Food Bank. We are also grateful for the opportunities the Ottawa Food Bank provides for community food programs to work together to improve the service we offer in areas like healthy food distribution, wraparound services, and reaching out to make sure that voices from all parts of our community are heard in this decision-making process. As organizations that work to support people across the city, we are stronger together than we are apart. Please join me in thanking the Ottawa Food Bank for providing the framework that makes this cooperation possible.
Thank you, Diana. You know, we stand here in this giant warehouse and I look down at our fridge and our freezer that is full of food ready to go out into the community. And this is sort of a placeholder for all of the work that happens in community. And it's really organizations like the Centertown Food Center that do the hard work on the ground. So although we are here to celebrate 40 years of the Ottawa Food Bank, we recognize that really it's about the network and the community's work. We know food banks cannot do it alone, but we are part of the solution. The Ottawa Food Bank is ready to partner with all levels of government to eliminate food insecurity in our communities. Today, we're joined by several government partners, and I'd like to acknowledge the members of Parliament, the members of provincial Parliament, city councillors who are here with us today. We are also joined by Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, and I'd like to invite His Worship the Mayor up to say a few words.
Thank you, Rachel. Bonjour tout le monde. You know, I got to say, these events always, I have mixed feelings, you know, so you arrive at an event at a food bank and there's a nice little spread with croissants and pastries. And I think I said this to you once before, Rachel, that I always feel a little bit guilty snacking at an event from the food bank. And I think it's those kinds of mixed feelings reflect exactly what we're all going through as we mark this anniversary, right? So on the one hand, we must celebrate the extraordinary contribution that the food bank has made to our community for 4 decades. And we must celebrate all of the great people who have worked so hard to provide for the most vulnerable in our community, to respond to that need that we wish was not there. But at the same time, we must continue to confront the sobering reality that we need a food bank in our city, and we shouldn't need a food bank in our city. So it's difficult to look at this milestone without having conflicting feelings. So I want to take a moment to recognize my colleagues who are here from Ottawa City Council, Marty Carr and Ralston King. Est-ce qu'il y a des autres conseillers ou conseillères ici aujourd'hui? No? Okay, so Marty and Ralston are both here, and they're both very passionate about this issue and care very deeply, so great to see you here. Marie-France Lalonde, Mona Fortier, Yasser Nakvi, Lucille Collard are here as well. And I want to take a moment to recognize a couple of friends of mine who, before Rachel, were the leaders of this organization. Michael Maidment is here, now with the Ottawa Community Foundation and was the head of the food bank for many years. And Peter Tilley, who's now with the Ottawa Mission. And on my way here today, Peter, I was reflecting on the fact that you reached out to me, I'm surprised to say this, but you reached out to me 15 years ago to mark the 25th anniversary of the food bank, and I was part of a group of people who led a fundraising effort at that time to mark the 25th anniversary of the Ottawa Food Bank, and now here we are again 15 years later. So I want to thank Rachel, who's an extraordinary leader for this organization, and thank your team as well for everything you are doing. The demand has grown so significantly, and this small but powerful group of people who work here every day, your efforts have been absolutely heroic in the face of that growing demand. So this is an important milestone, a significant milestone, but a difficult one to confront. Il est incroyable de penser que la Banque alimentaire d'Ottawa a été fondée à l'origine comme une mesure temporaire. We started this as a temporary measure, and temporary measures shouldn't last 40 years. I think income tax was supposed to be a temporary measure too, and we've still got that many years later. But anyway, it is really a reflection of the growing need in our society, the growing imbalances in our community, that we continue to require a food bank, but it's also a reflection of how strong and committed and supportive this community is, that we are able to keep this food bank going. And while I regret the presence of a food bank, I'm inspired by the incredible work that goes into it. Food insecurity persists not due to a lack of resources or concern or caring, but rather because of systemic barriers that prevent individuals from accessing adequate income. And in times of crisis, the Ottawa Food Bank relies on the support of Ottawa's food programs, our donors, volunteers, our community partners. En temps de crise, la Banque alimentaire d'Ottawa compte sur le soutien des programmes alimentaires d'Ottawa, de nos donateurs, de nos bénévoles, et de nos partenaires communautaires. Your contributions are more crucial now than ever before. It's a simple fact. Your contributions are more crucial than ever before. Vos contributions sont plus cruciales que jamais. And so on behalf of the entire city, I want to say thank you to everyone who is connected to the Ottawa Food Bank, the amazing staff, the volunteers, the fundraisers, the donors. Thank you for your tireless efforts to support those who are facing food insecurity in our community. Thank you for your commitment and your devotion. We are grateful to you all. And we need to keep supporting the Ottawa Food Bank collectively. Nous devons continuer à soutenir collectivement la Banque d'alimentation d'Ottawa pour qu'elle poursuive son travail essentiel et en aidant tous ceux qui en ont besoin. And let's make it a goal of ours to make sure that there isn't a 70th and an 80th and a 90th anniversary of the Ottawa Food Bank. Merci beaucoup. I'm going to now present Rachel with a little certificate to mark this occasion.
Programs must be centered around and designed with input from people with lived experience of food insecurity. The Ottawa Food Bank Network is convening community members to work together on food systems issues impacting their lives. Residents are advising the Ottawa Food Bank and working together to take action on poverty and social justice. Court Sarian is a member of this table, and her voice needs to be heard, and we're thankful that she is here with us today. And I invite Court up to say a few words.
From the bottom of my heart, thank you all for being here today. Sorry, nerves. When I talk to people who have stories to tell, it's always a concern as to whether a balance will be struck between the emotional impact that those people would like to make by telling their stories and the vulnerability that it exposes them to by doing so. I will always respond to those people that their story is their power, and that power is theirs to wield as they see fit. I would like to use my own to highlight why we are all here today. Like I believe every single speaker had noted before me, the Ottawa Food Bank was opened in 1984 as a temporary relief in what was thought to be a temporary crisis. Now, in 2024, new people are being seen at the food bank every day. The growing amount of first-time food bank users has blurred the line that used to distinguish the lower and middle classes. Many middle-class people that once saw the food bank as something that only poor people use now see themselves as needing food banks themselves. Very much like those low-income people they had such a hard time conceptualizing or relating to. I remember learning in high school about the threshold that distinguished one as having crossed below the poverty line, and reflecting at the time about what that meant for me and my family. I thought about how my family had been living up until that point, about how we had moved about 1 to 2 times a year on average. That could look like living in a house, but that could also look like living in a motel or living in a tent in a family member's backyard. I thought about how much school I had missed because my parents didn't have food or money or transportation to be able to send me in. I remember by grade 9, my midterm report noting over 40 absences in 3 months, which at the time I had touted as a new record. Thinking even further back, I remember being the age of 10 and explaining to my straight A friend who was smart as a whip and 110% on her assignments, that kind of student, and explaining to her what eviction meant, what that process felt like, and being so flabbergasted that someone so smart didn't know something so commonsensical. As I live and breathe now, that poverty line no longer exists. It's so much broader and more encompassing now. Now it's a sliding scale, and 99% of us fall to varying degrees on that scale. As more people need food banks and demand grows, people who have been attending food banks for years are seeing new faces and making new assumptions based on the clothes that people are wearing or if that person drives a car. This is all happening while we should instead be considering that we are all equally teetering on the precipice of falling one bad year, month, day away from sleeping on the street, as opposed to being one good year away from making millions. When I was a child, I was told that if you work hard, you make a lot of money. You're immune to being poor if you work. But as I sat in a house that didn't have electricity, hot water, or food in its cupboards, my mom was working on average 1 to 3 jobs at any given time. For over a decade, my mom would wake up before the sun rose, threw up from the stress and anxiety of the circumstances that we were living in, and would clock into her place of work only to clock out again after I was in bed for the evening. When she could pull the time, the effort, the energy, and the transportation together, she would leave for hours and come home with food that I couldn't recognize and didn't know how to prepare because she was too ashamed to tell me that she had to go to a food bank for groceries. I ask myself and all of you now, was she not working hard enough? Which would have been the right job to work instead that would have skyrocketed her into millionaire status? Which job would have been the right job? Currently, the minimum wage in Ottawa is $16.55 an hour. The minimum living wage in Ottawa is $21.95 an hour. When we refer to minimum wage, what are we referring to exactly? What is legally allowed to be the minimum amount that an employer can pay their employees? Based on what and who is that for? Are we really okay with paying less, knowingly paying less than what people need to survive? Because we can't keep bootstrap lecturing people out of poverty based on the assumption that hard work and a job will guarantee financial security and immunity from poverty on an indefinite basis. It doesn't work that way. The reality is that many intelligent, skilled, and capable Canadians are showing up at their places of work, receiving pennies for the jobs they do and the productivity that they bring, only to rest their weary heads on cement pillows with empty stomachs. That is what we are celebrating 40 years of today. Are we really set on celebrating 80? Thank you.
I ask again, when is enough enough? While the Ottawa Food Bank itself is 40 years, many of the 100 organizations that have been serving the community for much longer, many agencies are here today, and the agencies are truly the backbone of this community. We thank each and every one of you who work in a food bank, who volunteer at a food bank, who support a food bank, and who attend a food bank. We are grateful for your support and for showing up and getting what you need. Lately, I've been wondering, what would have happened if the Ottawa Food Bank Network was never created? What would happen to the thousands of people who turn to a food bank every single month? This network is an essential service in our city. And while our work is critical, we dream of the day where we are no longer needed, where we can close down this warehouse and people have the means to thrive in our city. Please help us get there. And let's say together, enough is enough. This concludes the end of our event, and I invite you to stay for those refreshments that have been provided by the Ottawa Mission, and they're a great program that they run there. And please stay and chat more about what it means to live in our city with food insecurity and how we can all work together to solve the issues. Thank you very much.